Hello and welcome. My name is Madriaga, and I will be discussing John B. Watson and the foundation of behaviorism. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. I'll be presenting on the life, contributions, and legacy of John B. Watson, one of the most influential figures in the development of modern psychology. Watson is often referred to as the father of behaviorism, a school of thought that fundamentally changed how psychologists approach human behavior. In this presentation, we'll look at Watson's background, the evolution and content of his theory, its practical influence on mental health treatment, and the cultural and ethical issues surrounding his work. I'll also share how Watson's ideas connect with my personal goals in the mental health field. Let's begin by learning a bit more about Watson's early life and education. Watson's early life and education. John Brodus Watson was born in 1878 in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, to Pickens Butler and Emma Watson. He grew up in a rural, deeply religious household under the influence of his devout Baptist mother. His father abandoned the family when Watson was a young boy, a formative experience that may have contributed to his later rejection of introspection and emotionalism in favor of hard science and objectivity. Despite a troubled childhood, Watson excelled academically. He earned his bachelor's degree from Furman University at just the age of 21 years old. He went on to earn his PhD in psychology from the University of Chicago in 1903, where he studied under the prominent functionalist psychologists such as John Dewey and James Roland Angel. During this time, Watson developed a strong belief that psychology should be grounded in the scientific method, focused on prediction, control, and measurable behavior. His early work in animal behavior would later influence his views on human psychology and form the basis of behaviorism. Watson's behaviorism. Watson officially introduced behaviorism to the field of psychology in his groundbreaking 1913 paper titled Psychology as the Behaviorist Views It. In this work, he argued that psychology should abandon the study of consciousness, introspection, and mental states altogether, focusing solely on observable behaviors. He believed that behavior was a product of environmental stimuli and that internal processes, such as thoughts or emotions, were irrelevant to psychological science. This represented a significant departure from earlier approaches like structuralism and psychoanalysis, which emphasized introspection and unconscious drives. Watson's ideas culminated in his famous Little Albert experiment, where he and his graduate student, Rosalie Rayner, conditioned a young child to fear a white rat by pairing it with loud, frightening noises. The experiment demonstrated how emotional responses like fear could be learned through classical conditioning. This was a pivotal moment that showcased the power of environmental factors in shaping behaviors. Watson famously claimed that he could take any infant and train them to become any type of specialist, regardless of background, if given full control over their environment. While extreme, this view underscored his belief in the supremacy of nurture over nature. Influence on modern psychology. Watson's legacy continues to influence psychological treatment and research today. His work laid the foundation for applied behavior analysis, which is also known as ABA, which is widely used in education and with individuals on the autism spectrum. It has also influenced behavior modification strategies and later developments like cognitive behavioral therapy, referred to as CBT as well. It combines behavioral principles with cognitive restructuring. Watson's insistence on the objectivity and measurement helped solidify psychology's place as a legitimate scientific discipline. His focus on the environment also led to practical applications in parenting, marketing, education, and therapy. For example, reinforcement schedules behavior shaping, and systematic desensitization, also techniques derived from behaviorist principles. Although some aspects of his theory have been criticized or refined over time, the core idea that behavior can be studied and modified through environmental influences remains central to many therapeutic interventions. Cultural influences and bias. It's important to understand that Watson's behaviorism didn't arise in a vacuum. It reflected the cultural and philosophical climate of the early 20th century America. This was an era that valued efficiency, productivity, and control, principles that align perfectly with industrialization. Behaviorism mirrored these cultural ideas by portraying human behavior as programmable, predictable, and modifiable. However, this approach also introduced significant biases. Watson's work ignored the role of culture, identity, and internal experience in shaping behavior. He assumed a universal human response to environmental stimuli, which overlooked racial, gender, and cultural differences. This Eurocentric and mechanistic view of human nature contributed to psychology that was largely blind to diversity and complex lived experiences. Today, we recognize these limitations and aim for a more inclusive, culturally responsive approach to psychological research and practice. So, what were some of the ethical issues? The ethical concerns surrounding Watson's work, particularly the Little Albert experiment, can't be overlooked. It's a bit tough, to be honest. In this study, a baby was subjected to fear conditioning without any known follow up or effort to reverse the emotional distress. There was no informed consent from Albert's guardians and no protection from harm. From today's perspective, this would be a clear violation of modern and ethical standards in psychological researches. Watson's disregard for participant well being contributed to public concern and eventual reforms in research ethics. Today, studies involving human subjects are closely regulated by institutional review boards, also referred to as IRBs. It ensures participants are fully informed, consent voluntarily, and are protected from harm. Watson's work, while scientifically viable, served as an example of why ethics must be central in psychological inquiry. So, why does behaviorism still matter? Despite the ethical and cultural criticisms, I believe that behaviorism still offers valuable tools for modern psychology. Its structured, goal oriented approach is especially effective in educational settings, behavior intervention plans, and skills training. As someone preparing to work in the mental health field, I see that Watson's work as a reminder that change is possible and that our environments can shape our outcomes. By understanding how behavior is learned and reinforced, I can help clients make practical, measurable changes in their lives. Watson's legacy also encourages me to critically evaluate which strategies are working and to always use evidence based methods. While I don't subscribe to a purely behaviorist model, I value its clarity, focus on outcomes, and strong foundations in research. So, what's become of John B. Watson's legacy? In summary, John B. Watson's contributions to psychology are both impactful and controversial. He was a trailblazer who redefined the scope of psychology by introducing behaviorism, which emphasized observable, measurable behavior as the foundation for scientific studies. His work moved psychology away from introspective methods and positioned it firmly within the empirical sciences, making it more credible to the broader scientific community. This shift not only influenced research, but also had significant implications for practical applications in education, therapy, and behavioral health. Watson's belief in the power of environmental conditioning laid the groundwork for behavior modification programs, reinforcement systems, and structured interventions that are still used to this very day. Despite these positive contributions, Watson's legacy is not without criticism. His strict rejection of internal processes such as thoughts, and emotions led to a limited understanding of the human experience. Additionally, his approach often failed to consider individual cultural and emotional differences as an oversight that modern psychology continues to work towards correcting. The ethical concerns raised by this experiment, particularly the Little Albert experiments, highlight how early psychological research often lacked protections for human subjects. However, these ethical failures have also served as valuable lessons, prompting the development of ethical guidelines and review boards that protect participants today. Watson's legacy reminds us that foundational theories should be continually re examined and updated to reflect evolving scientific knowledge and ethical standards. As we continue to build on Watson's work, it is crucial to balance scientific rigor with compassion, inclusivity, and cultural awareness in all psychological practices.